By every logical measure, this should have failed years ago. Take away one full day of operation, every single week, forever, from a fast food restaurant, and you take away roughly 1/7 of its potential revenue. No competitor does it voluntarily. No consultant would ever recommend it. And yet there's a chicken chain in America that has done exactly that since the day it opened. And somehow, it doesn't just survive. It out-earns almost everyone in its industry. James is standing in a parking lot on a Sunday afternoon, hungry, staring at a dark drive-through sign and a chained front door. The lights are off, the lot is empty, and across the street, every other restaurant is packed. He doesn't just shrug and drive to the next place. He stands there a second longer than most people would, and he starts doing the math in his head. 7 days in a week, 6 of them open. That's not a rounding error. That's a company deliberately walking away from real money. Every week, on purpose. And somehow still building one of the most profitable restaurant chains in the country. So today's business file starts with a simple question. How does a company that closes 1 day a week out-earn companies that never close at all? To understand that, you have to go back to 1946, to a small restaurant with a big name for how tiny it was. The Dwarf Grill, later renamed the Dwarf House, in Hapeville, Georgia, just outside Atlanta. It was opened by a man named Truett Cathy. Before that restaurant, Cathy had spent years working in diners that ran around the clock, 7 days a week, no exceptions. He'd lived what that schedule does to a person and to the people who work for them. So when he opened his own place, he made one decision on day one that had nothing to do with the menu. He closed on Sundays. Not most Sundays, not Sundays when business was slow. Every single Sunday, permanently, starting with the very first one after the restaurant opened. Here's the part that makes this more than a nice personal habit. Cathy didn't treat it as a quiet preference he'd quietly drop once the business needed the money. He treated it as a rule the company would keep no matter how big it got. And the business did get big. In 1967, Cathy opened the very first Chick-fil-A inside Atlanta's Greenbrier Mall, one of the first restaurants ever to operate inside a shopping mall food court. Mall management wanted every store open every day the mall was open, 7 days a week, no exceptions for anyone. Cathy said no. He told them plainly that Chick-fil-A would close on Sundays, mall traffic or not. Now stop and sit with that for a second. This wasn't a small-town diner owner turning down a suggestion. This was a brand new restaurant, inside someone else's building, telling the landlord, "We'll take less revenue than you want us to make, on purpose, every week, forever." If you ran the numbers the way a business textbook teaches you to, that decision looks reckless. Fixed costs, rent, equipment, insurance, don't take Sundays off. Sunday is often one of the busiest restaurant days of the entire week, especially near shopping centers and after church services let out, which is exactly the crowd closest to Chick-fil-A's own customer base. On paper, Chick-fil-A was choosing to hand a chunk of its best potential sales day, every single week, straight to competitors standing right across the parking lot. If a mystery like this is exactly the kind of thing you love untangling, tap subscribe now. There's a new business file opening every week. So here's the clue that should make this even more confusing. This isn't some struggling niche brand quietly getting by on principle alone. Chick-fil-A grew from that one mall location into thousands of restaurants across the country. And recent industry rankings, the kind restaurant analysts use to measure real performance, show something that shouldn't be possible if closing 1 day a week actually cost the company what basic math says it should. Chick-fil-A restaurants report the highest average sales per location of any major fast food chain in America. Not close to the top. At the top. Which raises the next question, and it's the one that actually matters. If losing 1/7 of your operating time is supposed to shrink your revenue, how is this company's per-restaurant revenue beating chains that never close at all? To find that clue, you have to look past the locked door on Sunday and pay attention to something almost nobody notices: how Chick-fil-A treats the people working inside that restaurant the other 6 days. Running a fast food location 7 days a week sounds efficient. But think about what it actually asks of the humans running it. No guaranteed day where the whole team is off together. Constant scheduling pressure. Managers and hourly workers burning out, and burnt-out people don't stay long. Which means restaurants are constantly hiring, constantly retraining, constantly losing the experience that makes a location run smoothly. Chick-fil-A's Sunday closure removes that pressure entirely. For every single employee, every single week, no exceptions and no rotating schedule to fight over. That guaranteed day off isn't a perk buried in an employee handbook. It's baked into when the doors are physically able to open at all. And that single decision quietly solves a problem that costs the entire fast food industry enormous amounts of money every year. Turnover. High turnover means constant hiring costs, constant training costs, and inconsistent food and service while new employees get up to speed. A restaurant that keeps its people longer keeps its systems tighter. Faster lines, fewer mistakes, friendlier service, the kind of consistency customers notice without being able to name it. But retention alone doesn't fully explain those sales numbers, and here's where a second clue slides into place. Chick-fil-A's restaurants aren't run directly by corporate employees the way many chains operate their stores. They're run by what the company calls owner-operators, independent local operators the company selects with extraordinary care, and unlike most franchise systems, each operator typically runs just one restaurant, pouring all of their attention into that single location instead of splitting focus across a dozen. Quick pause. If you're the kind of person who likes spotting the hidden logic behind everyday businesses, drop a comment below with your guess at where this is heading. I'll be reading them. Now here's where the clues start to connect. A guaranteed day off every week. An operator devoted to one restaurant instead of many. A workforce that sticks around instead of constantly turning over. None of that shows up on a menu board. None of it is something a customer can point to. But all of it shapes what happens the moment someone walks up to the counter. Faster service, fewer errors. A team that actually knows what it's doing because they've been doing it for years, not weeks. And then there's the piece hiding in plain sight the entire time. The one James was standing right in front of in that empty parking lot. Scarcity. 6 operating days instead of 7 doesn't just mean less time to sell food. It means every one of those 6 days carries the weight of demand that would normally be spread across 7. Customers plan around it. Cravings build on Sunday specifically because the answer is no. And need doesn't vanish on the day the doors are locked. It simply arrives, slightly larger, the moment they reopen on Monday. So layer all 4 clues together: the guaranteed day of rest, the single restaurant operator model, the industry low turnover that keeps every location running smoothly, and demand compressing into fewer open days instead of disappearing, and the picture flips completely. What looked like a company voluntarily giving away a 1/7 of its revenue is actually a company that built a structural advantage most competitors can't copy, because copying it means asking their own investors to accept less operating time too. That's the moment it clicks for James, standing in that dark parking lot. The locked door isn't the cost of the business. The locked door is the business. It's the decision underneath everything else that works. The lesson underneath this file is bigger than one chicken sandwich chain. Every business assumes that more hours, more access, more of your product constantly available equals more revenue. But there's a version of doing less that can build something no competitor selling around the clock ever manages to build. Consistency, loyalty, and anticipation that money alone can't buy. Chick-fil-A didn't need to be open every day to become one of the highest-earning restaurant chains in the country. It needed people to trust that when the doors were open, everything inside would be exactly as good as it was the week before. 4. Before we close this file, if this changed how you'll look at a locked restaurant door, do us a favor and share this video with the one friend who always complains about Chick-fil-A being closed on Sundays. It genuinely helps the channel grow. Chick-fil-A was never really selling a chicken sandwich 6 days a week. It was selling the promise that the 7th day meant something, to its employees, to its operators, and eventually, to everyone standing in that line. File closed. If this file changed the way you'll look at a locked drive-thru forever, like this video right now, it tells us exactly which stories to keep digging into. Drop a comment telling us what surprised you most about this one, and if you've got a guess about another company that's quietly winning by doing less, we want to hear it down there too. Share this with someone who still thinks Chick-fil-A is missing out every Sunday, and subscribe with notifications turned on so you never miss the next business file the moment it drops. Because next time, we're opening a file on a company where the product everyone lines up for isn't actually the thing making it rich at all. See you in the next file.